Welcome to Mountain Strong. Today I am at Campbell Creek Gorge. I didn't make it quite down to the creek itself. I ran out of time. I've actually got to head back home now, but definitely a place that I want to come back and spend a little bit more time again. Quite a simple trail. You walk along the top of this gorge here and there are beautiful views all around. Very accessible, definitely a place you should stop and come. But I've stopped here to give you a sense of the gorge itself, and I'm not sure how well depth is able to be perceived on these videos, but anyway, there's a pretty big drop-off down there, and if you look right along that gorge, I'll try to step out of the way here, you can see just down there the ocean, which is pretty cool, and of course deeper into the park that way, some mountains over there. But today we're going to be having a look together at Psalm 67. Let's go ahead and read that now. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make His face to shine upon us. That your way may be known on earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon earth. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. The earth has yielded its increase. God, our God, shall bless us. God shall bless us. Let all the ends of the earth fear Him. This psalm is quite a short psalm, but it's actually a very thoughtful psalm when you think about how in these 7 verses or so, there are 2 pauses, 2 occasions where the psalmist has to stop and truly think about what he is saying. The thoughts produced by this psalm are not only important for the psalmist's time. As I think about this psalm, they are really important for us as well. One of the things that I observed in living in an Eastern culture for a period of time, I lived in Singapore, I might have mentioned that in previous videos, but in living in an Eastern culture, I noticed the difference between the way that the Eastern world works compared to the Western world works. And one of the key differences is the understanding of the individual and his place in society. In the Western world, the individual trumps everything. He comes ahead of everything. We have to defend the rights of the individual. Whereas in the Eastern world, the individual yields to the collective. The individual is important, but only as he is a part of the collective. And when he goes against the collective, when he goes against the group or the community or the nation, then he is out of line and out of place. And so the needs of the community supersede the needs of the individual. And really, when I think about the standpoint that the Bible would prefer us to take, it would probably be the Eastern standpoint. Because what happens so often when we reflect upon religion and reflect upon faith as individuals is that we forget about the fact that God is not just here for us. You notice how this psalm opens up with, "May God be gracious to us and bless us and make His face to shine upon us." There are a lot of people in their faith that stop there. And they want to experience God's blessings. They want to experience God's goodness. They want God to shine down upon them. But they don't think about others. They don't pause and stop and think that if these blessings are for them, they're for others, and they ought to be for others. And I love how the psalmist takes that moment to stop and say, now wait a minute. It's not just about me. It's not just about me being blessed by God. It's not just about me receiving His glory. I want others to experience this. And so he pauses and then he says, let this happen to me so that, verse 2, you may be known on earth, your saving power among all nations. He wants everyone to be able to experience the blessings of God. He wants God's glory to shine down on every single person. And so he says, let your light shine so that others will know in verse 2, so that the peoples will know in verse 3, so that the nations will know in verse 4. It doesn't matter whether we are reflecting upon ethnicities. You know, sometimes we can say that the gospel has gone to a nation, but has it reached out to the people groups of that nation? We live in a very multicultural city here in Anchorage. There are many languages that are spoken. As I look out at the church population, I realize that there are not representatives from all those different ethnicities, and so there are still more peoples to be reached. And of course, as we consider the world, There are more nations to be reached. And so the political divisions of people, the geographical divisions of people, we need all nations to receive the glory of God, and all peoples, all ethnicities to receive the glory of God. The desire of the psalmist is to let these people know you. He wants the people to know God in verse 2. Let them know your saving power. Let them know who you are. Let them experience the joy that you bring in verse 4. He says, let the nations be glad and sing for joy. Let them experience joy. Let them experience balance and justice. Let them see what the Christian life is like, or from the standpoint of the Old Testament, of course, what the life of faith is like. He says, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon the earth. Everyone should be able to experience that, to experience how God brings a life without regret. That's not just for me, that's for all. He wants them to experience joy. He wants them to experience balance and justice, the evenness of God's way. He wants them to experience blessings in verses 6 and 7. The earth has yielded its increase. God our God shall bless us. God shall bless us, but let all the ends of the earth fear Him. And so this intense and burning desire, produced by a reflection upon God's goodness, for all people to know Him so that they can experience joy, so that they can experience justice, so that they can experience blessings. The repeated statement of this psalm is in verses 3 and 5, let the peoples praise you. Let all the peoples praise you. The desire is for there to be more people to join God in praise. I found it powerful in studying this psalm that this is actually a psalm that's reported to be one of the psalms that's traditionally sung on the day of Pentecost. I don't know enough to know if that's in a modern observation or an historical observation, but at the same time it's so appropriate that on the day that they were singing this song, perhaps, on that same day Peter used the keys to the kingdom to open the door for people to be added to the kingdom, added to the church, to obey the gospel from all different backgrounds and walks of life, Jews and proselytes. And how from there proceeded the gospel to you and to your children, Peter said, but to all those who are far off. The Jews of the Old Testament, if you're understanding Psalm 67, the Jews of the Old Testament were in fact encouraged to be evangelistic, to let God's light shine on them so it could shine through them, and so that others could see God's glory. And if they were given that mission, how much more should we take it seriously when we've been given it all the more clearly? When God's marching orders for us were to go and make disciples of the nations, to preach the gospel to every creature. This is a challenging psalm because it forces me not to individualize my faith, but to think about others, to think about ethnicities, to think about nations, to think about people who have not yet known my God. May God bless us all to take the call to being evangelistic more seriously, and may God bless this world so that people from every walk of life, every background, from every geographic location, every place on this earth, to the ends of the earth, that all people may come to fear Him, to know Him, to respect Him, and to receive the glory that is from Him, to experience His joy, to experience His balance, His equity, His justice, and, of course, to experience His blessings. May God bless you as you embark on that mission laid down for you by this psalm, and may God bless us all.